This is part 3 of the video providing an orientation to coded segments, covering counting and comparing coded segments. We show the Code Matrix browser, the Code Relations Browser, and the Crosstabs feature. Retrieving coded segments in the way shown in the first part of this video prioritises the qualitative data, and this may well often be what I want to do at the strategies level. But in this project we have 191 survey respondents and 30 focus group participants, so it's also likely that I want to interrogate coded segments more quantitatively. MAXQDA has several features for counting coded segments. First of all, remember that the numbers in both the document system and the code system are telling us how many coded segments there are so far at each document or code, group or set, across the project as a whole. We can also see information about the number of coded segments in many of the overview windows. So I'll just open an overview of documents for a code. And you can see the number of coded segments for this code in each of the documents in which it has so far been used. You'll also know from the video on charts that frequency information about coded segments can also be accessed and visualised from those displays. So now I'm going to concentrate on other ways of counting coded segments by showing you the Code Matrix browser, the Code Relations browser, and the Crosstabs feature. The Code Matrix browser presents a table with codes in the rows and documents in the columns, and gives a count of the number of coded segments for each code in each document. In the usual way, the display can be focused on combinations of activated codes and documents. In this project, I created a code set for problematic issues and experiences. So I'm going to activate that first. You'll see that I can choose whether I want the columns to show individual documents, document groups, or document sets. I'll choose document groups and click OK. I'll open up the code hierarchy so that we can see the codes in more detail. And now we can see that the problematic issues and experiences codes have so far only been used in the survey and focus group documents. Initially, MAXQDA provides the display using differently sized squares. The bigger the square, the more coded segments. But I can change this to display the frequency count. In the usual way, I can export this table to continue working with this information outside of MAXQDA. In addition, double-clicking on a number in the matrix retrieves the coded segments in the Retrieve Segments window in the background. So I'll just open that up first, and then show you that if I retrieve these 14 coded segments within the survey document group at the helpless code, they appear in the Retrieve Segments window behind. There's all kinds of ways to vary the display in the Code Matrix browser. You'll see in the document system that I've created document sets to group survey and focus group respondents according to whether they are employed or not. I did this because I want to be able to investigate whether employment status impacts on how respondents talk about aspects of the financial crisis. These document sets can be used in the Code Matrix browser, so I'll just activate them both and then refresh the browser. I'll choose the document sets this time because that's what I want to focus on. And now you can see that the comparison is on the basis of the employment status of respondents, regardless of whether they filled in the survey or participated in the focus group. Code Matrix browsers can be generated on the basis of any combination of activated documents and codes. And as you can see in the options, you can also choose to use the weight filter. And rather than to count coded segments, you can display frequency information for each document only once. The Code Relations browser is similar, but codes are displayed in both the rows and the columns of the table, and you can choose the basis upon which MAXQDA counts coded segments. In this project, which investigates the way volunteer writers reflect on their lives, the coding in the first phase was fairly descriptive. For example, we coded every mention of different types of actors in the writer's narratives, and we also coded where they explicitly expressed positive, negative, neutral, or mixed feelings. Under the Close Networks code, we have captured all mentions of close family and friends. and we wanted to pick out whether there were any discernible patterns in the way writers express certain feelings towards each of those close relations. So I'm going to activate the Close Networks group of codes, and I've also activated the document group I'm interested in right now. When I run the Code Relations Browser, I'm going to leave activated codes as the rows, but I'm going to choose a top-level code to be the basis of what appears in the columns. You can see that I can choose between co-occurrence or near as the basis of the intersection between the rows and the columns. I'm going to leave it on co-occurrence because I want to pick out coded segments that have both close network code and an expression code linked to them. In the next window, you can see that I've chosen the expressions code as the top-level code, so I'll just click OK. And now you can see that the table has the close networks codes as rows and the expression codes as columns. I have the same options available to me as I just showed you in the Code Matrix browser. So for example, I can choose to count coded segments, and if I have my Retrieve Segments window open, then I can retrieve the coded segments at any intersection between any of the two codes. The Crosstab feature in MAXQDA is similar to the Code Matrix browser, except that it relies on variable values that have been applied to documents, and is therefore a way of counting the coded segments for particular codes based on groups of documents that have particular characteristics. In other words, it's a way of counting coded segments based on the relationship between codes and variable values. In this project, we captured survey respondents' answers to each open-ended question separately, as we wanted to undertake the analysis one question at a time. Question 2 asked how respondents felt they had been personally affected by the financial crisis, and you can see the sorts of answers provided by the codes hanging underneath. We wanted to investigate whether where respondents live influenced their answers to this question, and the Crosstab allows us to do this. You can see that I've activated all of the codes hanging underneath the responses to question 2 code, and I've also activated the survey document group because that's the focus of this interrogation. The Crosstabs function is underneath the Mix Methods menu, and now I can choose the variables that I'm interested in, and you can see that I've chosen the urban and rural variable values. I'll ensure that I'm focusing this not only on activated documents but also on the activated codes and click OK. And again, the table is showing us the number of coded segments at each code amongst either the urban or the rural participants. In the usual way, I can access the coded segments themselves by double-clicking on one of the numbers. But of course I need my Retrieve Segments window open in order to view them. If I want to look at percentage information, I can either choose this icon in order to see the column percentages, or I can choose this icon to look at the row percentages. In addition, I can choose the Quote Matrix icon in order to output this table, displaying the coded segments within a table. And in this way, I can not only compare the count of coded segments, but also compare the qualitative data at each segment amongst each location. The Quote Matrix is also available from the Code Matrix browser and the Code Relations browser, but I've only shown it to you here from the Crosstabs function.